Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another client interview. This one is with one of our clients inside of High Level Systems. His name is Gehr. And Dylan is a total beginner who decided to just go straight into high level. And that's honestly the right thing to do because you get one-on-one support, you get a community, you get interaction with myself, my team, everybody that's succeeding. And he actually used our organic strategies to book 40 sales calls before closing his first client. But then when he closed his first, he closed his second, and then his third, and then his fourth. And that week, he had a $20,000 revenue week. So it's pretty incredible to see people like Dylan. You know, he's got a kid on the way. He's got, you know, a wife that he recently got married to less than 2 years ago, year and a half ago or so. Kid coming, you know, he's got a full-time job, and he literally can't even participate in the group calls. We have daily coaching calls in our program, and he literally has to have himself muted with his video off on these calls. So he never was able to add anything to the calls. He just had to listen and hear the strategies and implement on his free time once he got home from his job at like 6 or 7 p.m. So I have tons of respect for Dylan, and it's been a long time coming for this interview. So for those of you who know Dylan inside of High Level Systems, for those of you inside of our program, you know that, you know, we've had our eyes on Dylan for a while. We were just so desperately wanted to succeed. And, you know, on my client or on my team meetings, you know, we have a check-in call every now and again with my team. We always kind of pin certain people, and we're always like, hey, like this person really needs some extra attention. This person needs some extra focus. Like this guy's got a lot of potential. This guy, we can tell he's struggling. He needs some more help. So, and Dylan was one of these guys where I was just like, let's push him, let's push him, let's push him. Because when you have 40 calls and no sales, like that can really do something to your mentality. So we just kept pushing and telling him it's part of the process, part of the process. And then boom, the guy makes sales. So it's a pretty incredible story. Dylan is basically just going to share his experience inside of High Level Systems as well as what he's learned. And really the core idea for him is just at the end of the day, you got to admit that you don't know what you don't know. And he came into this program with a little bit of I'm not really sure that this is for me, but then he started to see the results pouring in. He saw the community succeeding around him, and he knew that this was the right decision. And that's what we represent. We represent helping you know what you otherwise wouldn't know and helping you take action on the things you otherwise wouldn't know how to take action on. So without further ado, welcome to the channel, Gehr. Super proud of you, dude. Hopefully you enjoyed this interview. The viewer, if you do, leave a like down below. Schedule your call, your one-to-one free consult with myself or the team, and we're going to see if you're a good fit for our one-on-one accountability, guidance, and training on scaling your agency, consulting, or coaching business. Whether you're just getting started or you've already got an existing bit of momentum, 0 to 6 figures or 6 to 7 figures, we're here to help you. Schedule your call in the description. Let's get started. Otherwise, enjoy the Dylan. Welcome to the channel, brother.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. It's you know, long time coming. I think our whole community's just had their eyes on you since you joined, and it's been really cool to see you succeed. So just introduce yourself a little bit. Obviously, I recorded an intro separate to this so people generally know where you're coming from. They know the success you've seen, how long it's taken you, and, you know, some of the things that you've experienced. But just introduce yourself a little bit to those who, you know, don't know you yet. In your own words, what got you to join, you know, some of the successes you've been experiencing, and just, you know, some of the things about where you're at and where you're headed.
Yeah, for sure, man. So yeah, my name's Dylan. I have a consulting agency. So I worked in kind of corporate marketing for a number of years. So my experience was just like in paid ads, just corporate marketing style, very generalized. So when I started, I knew how to do that, but I was struggling to get consistent meetings. So that's kind of what enticed me to join the program. Was just what you've been dealing with your other clients and being able to generate the consistent meetings and kind of take myself to where I want to be. So I think about 3 months now. I think I've been in for about 3 months. And it's going great, man. Been really blessed with everything that you guys have taught me and the community that you got around you. And I can't complain. I can't say enough good things about it, to be honest.
Awesome. So, I mean, I'm sure I've explained a little bit of the basics in the intro, but like give some numbers away, whatever you're comfortable giving. Like how many meetings did you take? Because I think that's really why I wanted to have you on. And you know that, like, it took you a while. I mean, it took you a minute. Like, you got a lot of calls and a lot of strategy sessions, a lot of meetings, and then immediately you cash a check, and then literally right after, and I think another one came after that, and it's just been like uphill since. So walk me through what that process has been like for you, of just like kind of this, like, you know, although the phrase, you know, it takes a long time to become an overnight success.
I feel it kind of applies to your situation because it's like people are like, whoa, he's like making it's like coming out of nowhere, but really you planted these seeds for a while. So walk people through how that's been a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my like experience has been a little different. I mean, you know this, like it's just like kind of odd the track. So when I first started, my closing ratio, I was really good at sales. And then when I came on and I started generating a ton of meetings, I was like, all right, this is a cakewalk. Like I'm gonna close, I'm gonna hit my goals right away, all this stuff. And it just didn't happen, which was like a real shocker to me because I was always good at the one aspect and then I added the other aspect and I thought they were just going to mesh and it just didn't work like what I thought. Um, so kind of to go backwards, when I first hopped on, I really wanted to focus on organic and I generated probably 25-ish meetings in my like first month doing it. And then I've kind of just hit that same number consistently month after month. So, I mean, given that I'm at like 70 something meetings now, and it really wasn't clicking, like I just wasn't hitting the sales goals that I wanted to. And I wasn't really sure what was going on, what was like, I'm doing everything to land these meetings. I'm doing everything right. And it just wasn't clicking. And then, like you said, it just, everything compounded and eventually it clicked. And once one happened and the next happened and the next happened. And I ended up doing like 20 plus closed deals in a week, which was like mind blowing to me. So yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at now. And it's just kind of been consistently snowballing or compounding on itself over and over. And now I got some momentum going and it's really good. And I think along the way, I've made a couple tweaks and changes. And I think that's important for anyone knowing that, I mean, it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to, like you said, be an overnight success. And some of these times when you see like these interviews or see people posting online, you think, hey, I need to get there. I'm going to get there right away. And it's okay if you don't. And that was a struggle for me. I know for sure, thinking that I had to get there right away.
Yeah. No, it's funny because you are the same story that I was when I first started getting help and I started investing into like different coaches and stuff like that. Is like it took me a while, and like I thought there was something broken with me. Like I thought like, oh, this is working everybody, and it's unfortunate. It can kind of feel a little lonely, even like wondering like why it's taking so long. And but I honestly like I stuck to what I said for you, Dylan, from the start. When I saw you had like 20 sales calls and you closed none of them, I was like, once you close one, the next sale is going to come like immediately after. And then lo and behold, like that's completely what happened. So I don't think I necessarily knew that you closed 20 deals in 1 week. I hadn't heard that yet because I saw on our Slack channel some of the closes you were making. So walk me through what some of those deals were, and maybe share, whatever you're willing to share. I'm not going to pry anything out of you that you're not comfortable sharing, but just share, what those deals were, maybe the average worth of one of those deals, whatever you're willing to share, just so people have an idea of what that really looks like for you.
Yeah. So it wasn't 20 deals. It was 20,000 worth of deals. So it was like 4 deals in a week. So, I mean, that's almost one close every 2 days.
Yeah.
Awesome. And it was about 20K plus. So a couple of the deals were structured a little differently. One was a larger deal with like a revenue share at the end of it. Some of the other ones were structured a little differently. So, I mean, within that 20K, about 2/3 of it was closed up front. So, I mean, cash collected for 1 week, it was pretty incredible from where I was at.
That's pretty awesome. That's got to
sure.
be a cool feeling, right?
Yeah, for sure. And the structure was a little different in some of them, but I'm okay with that. And I think it was cool to kind of experiment with pricing. And you know this and we've kind of talked about this in the group, that you're never really going to know what works until you try it. So whether it was me pricing high or adding options or rev share or whatever it was, like I was never going to know what worked, what didn't work, what clicked until I gave it a shot. So that week was really cool. For that specifically was more of like reassurance. Take the money out of it, just knowing what clicked with people, what worked, what to kind of use moving forward. I thought was like the best part.
It's a cool insight. It's really like you're saying, like once you know what works, like it's almost like once you know the rules, you can play with the rules. Once you know the barriers, you can start to play with like, okay, this seemed to work. Let's try this now too. Like the offer structure you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think you've actually talked about this before on your channel, is like, you don't necessarily have to, I mean, I know some people ask, does this niche work? Does this offer work? Like, anything can work is if you can make it work, but to do that, you have to kind of test it and figure it out and
Yeah.
track your numbers and do all this stuff. And it goes the same with your offer structure, your pricing or whatever. And I mean, it took me a little bit to realize that. And I think you don't, like you said, you don't really know until you know.
Mm.
And that's what that week did for me. It proved my concept. It proved my offer was strong. It proved my niche was good. It proved my pricing structure. So it gave me all the answers and clarity that I needed to kind of keep pushing forward, which was like the best feeling.
That's cool. And it's kind of unfortunate in my eyes that I took my 10-day break right, like just post you starting to succeed, because I almost wanted to catch this interview like in the middle of kind of the emotional high of it. But like, let me ask you kind of a weird question. Like, how are you feeling? Like, how does it feel now that you've done it and you feel like you can kind of recreate that success? I imagine it doesn't feel like it happened out of nowhere. It feels like you know the system. Like, what's the general consensus in your own head? How are you sleeping at night? Like, what's going through your mind, man? I mean, and I know you've also got a kid on the way, which is a pretty incredible thing. And that's why I have so much respect. And I think that's why I really encouraged our community to make this happen for you. But just walk me through how you're feeling, man. Like with your business, with the newfound, I don't know if you necessarily would call it predictable yet, because it's still a startup. You're still in that phase of there's some moving parts, but there's proof of concept now. How does that hit?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's just like a confidence thing. Because when you go about this journey, and I mean, I could be wrong because I'm not at your level or some other people's levels, but like every step you go, you're going to have doubts, and you're just going to have that like emotional roller coaster kind of an experience where you're going to have your lows and your highs.
Yep.
So just experiencing that high was amazing because it keeps you going. And I mean, another thing that like for me, the steps that I take in my marketing to kind of get the sales that I got to is a little bit different. So I kind of know the whole process that I took to get here. So now I know that even if it's a longer process, I know that I'm letting the process play out and that it works. So like, even if this week is slow, I know that it's slow because it's compounding to a bigger week down the road.
Yeah.
And that's like the biggest thing. And I think that was one of the things that I struggled with in the beginning, was like, I would have like big weeks with meetings, but I wouldn't get any sales. And then I would have not a lot of meetings like in the next week. But the reason for that is just because there's constant progression and process that goes through getting the meetings and connecting with people and all these things. So even though there's no physical result, there's a lot that's going into it to kind of get to that end result. So now I kind of know that whole process. And,
yeah.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. It's almost like one of the skill sets that it's unfortunate that beginner entrepreneurs don't experience until they've had their first check is being able to kind of measure the value of your actions 3 degrees from separation from them actually making that check happen for you. I think that's kind of what you're saying. It's like right now you're doing things that you know will lead to money, but you just it hasn't come in yet, but you know, and it's almost like you're kind of just banking on your coach or whoever you're working with or whatever book you're reading or whatever for now to just kind of like encourage you like, hey, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But then when it happens, that's like when the loop completes. And now it all comes together to make sense because, you know, you've been focused on that check for so long that kind of represents the finish line. And I remember for me too, I mean, I closed like a $1,200 like consulting client through this WhatsApp group I was in. Like, I'm not even kidding. I don't know if I've told the story before, and it gives me $1,200, and I made a video about it. You can scroll down on my YouTube about like how I got paid $1,200 for coaching or something like that. And I was something with like a funnel, like a VSL funnel build out or something like that. And it blew my mind. But I didn't even think I could recreate it because I didn't have the mindset at the time of like, okay, what variables went into this that allowed it to happen? I just kind of sat on that and accepted that it was just luck. But this is why you're at such an advantage. And this is one thing that I don't think people that think like us really are super grateful for, or like aware of how much of an advantage it is that you can do this again. like you can consistently grow your business because you generally I'd say you have like a 70 to 80% clarity on what actions have led to those calls, which have led to those sales. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's
Yeah.
what that week did more than anything. It confirmed that,
Yeah.
right? So like I knew the steps that I was taking, but now I know that those steps were the right steps, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. It totally makes sense. So walk me through then the future of this thing. So, I mean, you had like a $20,000 week. Of course, some of it was up front. The rest is coming soon, but $20,000 in a week. We'll say that because it sounds way cooler than explaining it away.
Yeah.
But what's your future of this thing? And like, where do you want to scale this thing to? What in the next 12 months, like where do you really want to get? And like, what changes are you going to make in order to get there? If you've thought that far ahead, I mean, and maybe we can do that right now, think that through, but walk me through where you're headed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard to put a number goal on it because I don't know if you've ever experienced this. Like the number that I hit so far was nothing that like I could ever thought of. So it's like, I don't know the next number that I could hit. And I don't want to put a cap on it, but I mean, in regards to step, it's just continuing to scale, getting cash in the bank to run VSL, like a lot of the logistics stuff and just putting all those processes into place. So like I've gotten to the point where like I feel really strongly in like one marketing method, right? So now it's just putting the processes in place to get to the next one and then the next one so that it can continue to scale and just add on and kind of compound over time.
That's something really interesting. You're like, I don't want to set a revenue goal in place because I don't want to cap it. That's a pretty cool thing to say. Like you're afraid, like, okay, if I say 50,000 a month, what if I can do 80? Or like if I say 20, what if I can do 40? You know?
Yeah,
So it's like right now you're just like, I don't really know. I'm just gonna, and that's kind of wise, honestly. You're like, I'm just gonna focus on what is generating these meetings. And so if there's a goal for you, maybe it's like how many meetings a day you're gonna take or something. You know, I don't know, but
yeah. And I mean, I have I would say my main goal, like you said, is just the meetings, right? And it's generating a specific number of meetings a week. Like I don't care about the day, I don't care about the time. Like it's just that number because if I know I can get like a certain amount of number, then I can get that many sales. And that's one of the big things that you work with people in our community with is numbers and tracking those numbers and knowing your numbers. I mean, luckily for me, when it came to numbers, I mean, I was in corporate marketing, so like numbers is a huge thing. So I had that advantage. But that's like a main thing and getting really consistent with my numbers because the sales could come and go, right? Like you can have a huge week and then a slow week, but that number at the end of the month is the same. But it's the meetings that lead and create that those sales numbers that's what matters. So that's what I focus on day in, day out, week in, week out.
No, it's cool. It's really like if I were to summarize what we do in this program, it would be like helping you build an offer that scales really well, that you're excited about, that solves a market problem. So offer. Then it's like knowing your numbers. So like knowing what's your cost per call and what's your closing rate on those calls and what's the bottleneck in generating those calls. So like knowing those things. And then lastly, it's selling on outcomes versus selling on deliverables and like specific things that you're bringing. It's like selling based on where the client wants to get versus selling on, what it does. Like, this is why we do interviews. Because it's like people watching this right now, and I'm very open and transparent about our marketing process. Like this is warming leads up because they might want the outcome that you have right now. So you're not selling on like specific deliverables. You're selling on like, hey, this person succeeded, or here's what our client's been able to do. And I'm sure on your calls, the ones that have closed, you referenced case studies or you referenced funnels that you knew worked, whether it's yours or even somebody else that built it, or you just walk them through how it's going to work and what it could do for them best and worst case scenario. Like that's how you make sales. So yeah, it's cool that the numbers thing stuck with you because for me, like it's honestly even challenging for me because I can be too revenue focused. And so I think maybe even just pulling up something from your book, I should have a weekly meeting goal. I think because we know how much we close out of that. That's good.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's important for anyone watching this or anyone that joins is that to know that everyone is different, right? Everyone's business is different. Everyone's situation is different. So like a number that works for me might be different that works for you. So like, and my processes are going to be different than yours just naturally. Like the way that we think, the way that we work, the way that our businesses are structured, everything is different. Everything can be different, and it most likely is different. And that's why I think having those types of goals is almost better. At least it works better for me. I can't speak for everyone, but for me, that's what I've found. And especially because I mean, this kind of goes against the grain, but I almost drag my sales out because like I just want to keep hopping them on the call or keep getting people on the call, even if it's multiple times, because I feel like that builds more trust, even if I can have them on 3-4 times, etc. But I know that my close percentage in doing that goes higher. So I'm just like meetings. That's like the only thing.
It's like, it really is like giving you the foundations of the playbook, and then you've got to kind of play with what works for you. That's why, like, when we're helping you build your own consulting offers, we tell you to boil it down to a few core ideas. Like ours is like offer, numbers, and either it's mentality or mindset, or it's maybe even team. I couldn't even really summarize that final one. It's almost like offer, numbers are the main thing, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean,
but then once you do that, once you do that, you can take people from different scenarios and kind of plug them into the same system,
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's what like made me resonate with you and the team so much is like, if you, like you said, if you'd break what you guys do down into 3 or 4 things, I had a couple of them, but I had a major gap in the other ones. So even if you, like, my mindset was if you can fill the gaps, then it's gonna be a perfect match because then I'll have everything that I need. And that's what, in regards to offer structure, was like the main one, because without that you don't have anything. And then secondary means of marketing, and that's it. And it kind of all just clicked after that.
I mean, that's it, man. Like offer and meetings, and like often people have mindset issues or like personal limitations. It's like I would say that's probably our third. It's like, where's your head at? Getting
I would agree. I see you doing that a lot. I would agree.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, and it's like, you say people come from different scenarios, and I'm sure your clients are the same way, where they come from different like scenarios. But when you can boil down your offer, and this is just kind of a golden nugget from this interview that I'm taking, even just as I'm listening to your situation and reflecting on what's gotten you to where you're at with our offer. It's been the ability to, yes, people come from different walks, but knowing when somebody, even though they are way off in left field, you can still plug them into your model and your way of doing things and get them to succeed, as long as you can get them to buy into the model. So that's really the challenge, I think, for you as you scale. And I'll see this with a lot of clients that, like, one of our clients, they're actually coming up as an interview, Doug and Haley Johnson. They had a 6-figure month recently for the first time ever, from 6 figures a year to 6 figures a month, which is insane. And now they're starting to have that problem of like, okay, we've got so many clients now. How do we like lead this community? And you got to lead by simplicity. It's like, here's the main 3 things we work on, or here's the 2 things, or here's the 1 thing, or here's the rules, here's the guidelines, or whatever it is. You have to make sure that all of your clients know exactly what they have to do and exactly what you're doing for them. And you don't go out of those bounds much at all, unless you absolutely have to. And that's going to keep results very simple. And it's going to force you to have an offer that actually works. By limiting what you do, you actually force what you do to matter.
I mean, exactly. And that's where I'm at. And that's, like I said, that would, if I were to rank like what you've helped me with throughout the thing, that's 100% number 1, like without a question, is just structure. And because I was already a simple, like, business, I've always felt like people overthink it, and there's just too many things going into it when it doesn't need to be like that. But just the positioning of that is what you've helped me with so much, that now I know clear as day, like, how to describe it, how to break it down, that it resonates with people in any situation where they fit into my niche, if that makes sense. Because my situation is a little different. I work with a variety of different niches, but my offer is one niche. So like the way that I scale is like, if you can fit into my offer, then I'll work with you, because I know it's scalable. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to make any changes or anything. So then that's how I know that it's scalable. And I take my offer as the niche, not who I work with.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that too, because I think that's a better way of defining niche. Like
Mhm.
one of the things that I even come at, like I think I've said this in our group calls before. I'm like, hey, we don't do customer avatars around here. We actually just start with a problem, and then we see who's attracted to the solution, and then we draw customer avatars after we see who comes. So it feels like that's your own way of saying that almost.
Yeah.
It's like I have this offer, I have this solution, I have this problem that I solve. It's like let's just see who lines up for it when we blast it.
Yeah. And
You
I
know?
mean, that's like what made me start to begin with was the problem thing, because
Mm-hmm.
I worked in a situation where I knew hands on what the problem was. And then I would work with other companies that couldn't help solve the problem. So then I was like, all right, I want to do what I feel other companies that I'm working with aren't doing. And I mean, so that like, it's funny that you said the problem thing, because that's like the main reason and main thing that got me started in the first place.
Mm-hmm. That's super cool, dude. I mean, we can keep going for a while, I'm sure, but let's distill it down a little bit for somebody who's maybe at the stage that you're at when you were joining, where you kind of had a decent vision of where you were headed, but you just needed some help. Like, what's your advice for that person? Maybe somebody who's been on the fence about booking a call, or somebody who's even, whether it's us, honestly, or even somebody else that can help them. Like, what's your input on what you wish you would have done differently, if anything, or what's your advice for somebody at that sort of a stage where they were where you were, basically? What's your advice for that person?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing that I can tell anyone that's learning is to be willing to admit that you don't know what you don't know. Like that may sound kind of weird or backwards, but it's the truth. Like I said, like I had 2 or 3 of the 4 or 5, whatever that you help with, but I was willing to admit that I needed help with a couple of them. And I mean, it's already paid dividends. Like it's already exceeded my expectations just by getting a little bit of help in certain areas. And then I would say the second thing is just the patience and knowing that you're different than the next person, and that what you see online, a lot of these people spend hours and hours and time grinding away to get to their point, and that it doesn't have to be an overnight success, that you can continually make the small steps and you'll get to where you want to go. And I mean, you won't regret it. You'll never regret investing in yourself, in my opinion. So, I mean, those are the 2 main things. They're very broad, but they're very important to me.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Even coming away from my 10-day break, like that was one of the takeaways I had as I like self-observed. I got to this point with how much success we've seen recently of like thinking that I knew everything, and I'm having to catch that before it hurts me, because I don't. Like I'm so small still. Like there's literally companies in my exact niche that do like 4 million a month. It's like I'm so small. So yeah, I would agree with that completely, dude. It's great. It's great input. But thanks for being on the channel, dude. It's a short one, but it's sweet. If you want to meet Dylan, obviously he's inside of the program. If you're in the program, feel free to reach out to him. You're obviously welcome to join us by booking your call down below. There was no pressure conversation. We'll see if you're a good fit. If you are, we'll get you started. If not, we'll be completely honest with you. Send you maybe to someone that's a better fit for you or whatnot. But thanks again, Dylan. Appreciate your time, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course.